Are you in the mood for Asian takeout, but not in the mood to try to figure out how it's gonna hit the bites, points, or calories? Well, I've got the perfect solution for you here. This is my orange ginger chicken, but if you're not in the mood for ginger, you can leave that out. But with ginger or without, this is delicious. So if you'd like to see how this is done, stick around because it's coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I'm a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now today is one of mine, but it is again, I've been doing a lot of these recently, it is again an Asian takeout meal that I am adapting to make it a little better for bites, points, and calories. Now, as you saw from the thumbnail, I am doing orange ginger chicken, but you don't have to do the ginger if you really don't want to. If you don't have it, don't worry about it, just make orange chicken, which is actually the original dish. But I am doing orange ginger because I really like that slight little bit of heat from the ginger. All right, so now we know what we're making. Let's go over the ingredients. I have here my cooking spray. There's hardly ever a video where I'm not using cooking spray. Here I have 1 cup of sugar-free orange marmalade, and I'm using the Smucker's sugar-free. There are other varieties out there. If you find something else that may alter the bites, points, or calories very slightly. If you can't find the orange marmalade, which you can get online, then you could use, like I know I've seen the sugar-free apricot and the sugar-free peach. You could use those in a pinch. It wouldn't be exactly the same, but it'd be close enough. Here I have 1 pound of chicken breast cut into bite-sized pieces, and if that looks a little bit more than a pound, you're right. I had a very large breast here, and I decided to just use it all because chicken breast is 0 bites, 0 points for me, so I didn't mind bumping it up a little bit, but I am doing the nutrition facts based on 1 pound. Here I have 1/3 cup of low sodium soy sauce, and you don't have to use low sodium. I just prefer keeping the sodium down, but you could use regular soy sauce if you prefer. And I also show it in my previous Asian takeout video, using something called coconut aminos, which are much lower in sodium. So if you're really watching your sodium, look for coconut aminos in your grocery store where you would buy your soy sauce. Here I have 1.5 tablespoons of ginger, and that is fresh ginger. Well, it's not fresh. It is the squeeze bottle, the grated ginger, but you could use fresh. If you don't have ginger, you don't want to get ginger, but you still want that ginger flavor, you would replace that with 1.5 teaspoons of dry ground ginger. Here I have 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, and that is about 3 cloves if you want to mince it yourself. Here I have 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and you could technically get away with not using the cornstarch, but it does add a nice texture to the chicken, and it also helps to give us a little browning, but if you don't want to use it, you can do it without. Here I have 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar, and if you don't have rice vinegar, apple cider vinegar would work just as well. You want something that's slightly mild with a little bit of sweetness to it. Here I have 1 teaspoon of sesame oil and 1/2 teaspoon of sesame seeds, and the seeds are optional. In fact, you could probably get away without using the sesame oil, but it does add a nice flavor to the sauce. Play around with it. If you don't have something and you still want the flavors, just do what you can. But those are all of the ingredients. Let me shuffle a few things around and we'll get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our cornstarch and add that to the chicken and just toss that to coat the chicken. As I said, if you really didn't want to use this, you could get away with not doing it. I would just make sure you pat your chicken dry, just to make sure you get some nice browning on it. Now, I'm also in the recipe going to list a way to do this in the slow cooker and a way to do it in the Instant Pot. Someone had asked for Instant Pot recipes, but because of our current situation with 2 of our rooms being shut down because of repairs being needed, and they are still being needed, and having our office out here now, I couldn't do the Instant Pot and try to let Paul work at the same time. So I'm doing it on the stovetop, but in the recipe, it will give you a slow cooker and a Instant Pot version. All right, so our chicken is coated with the cornstarch, and I have my skillet heated up over medium-high heat. I am just going to give that a spray now that it is hot and just add in our chicken. And you want that chicken to be in an even layer, no pieces on top of each other, because we want even browning on all of our pieces. And because of the cornstarch, it may be a little gluey, so you will need to separate them a little bit more than if they did not have the cornstarch on them. All right, so now what we're gonna do is let this sit for about 3 minutes to let that brown on that side and get some nice color. If you were doing this in a crock pot or a slow cooker, you would do this same step, but only do enough to get a little bit of color on them. You're not gonna let them sit. It'd be about a minute per side because you still want them to cook in the slow cooker without overcooking. If you were doing this in an Instant Pot, you would put the saute function on and do this in there. You may have to do it in 2 batches because of the size of your Instant Pot, but you wanna do this the same thing, just to get a little bit of color, not to cook it through like we're trying to do here. But give me another minute or 2 and I'll move on. Okay, so it's been about 3 minutes. You can see that there is some whitening happening around the edges of the chicken. That's what you're looking for. Then we're just going to flip them, and we're gonna do basically the same thing. We're gonna let it sit for about 2 to 3 minutes just to get some more color on that side and let these cook through. And I did want to mention that if you're not in the mood for chicken, then you could easily swap that out for some pork or some beef and do it as orange pork or orange beef, your call. But I've got these all flipped over, so another 2 minutes or so and I'll be back. So it's been another 2 minutes. I'm just going to stir these around a little bit, get that all loosened up from the bottom. And now I'm going to transfer it to a plate here to get that out of our pan. And it's still going to cook a little bit while it is on the plate here. And then we're going to return this to the heat, but we're going to turn it down to medium. And a lot of these brown bits on the bottom are cornstarch, and that is actually going to help our sauce to thicken up a little bit without having to do a cornstarch slurry at the end. So now this is over medium heat. I'm going to add in the marmalade, soy sauce, rice vinegar, ginger, garlic, sesame oil, and sesame seeds. And I'm gonna stir this all together, scraping up any of those brown bits on the bottom. As I said, that is partly cornstarch. It's gonna help our sauce to thicken up. So you wanna make sure you get that up. It's also gonna add some more flavor because browned bits on the bottom of the pan, that's a lot of flavor. It's what they call fond. And once it hits the heat, that marmalade is going to start to break down a little bit, so it won't be too difficult to stir in here. Now we're just gonna let this cook. We're gonna let it come up to a slight boil and let it sit for probably about 5 or 6 minutes for it to thicken up and be able to coat our chicken very nicely. Now, if by that 5-minute time you're not thinking it's thick enough for you, you can easily just put a cornstarch slurry in, which is a tablespoon of water, cold water, and a tablespoon of cornstarch. But I really don't think you should need it. But let me cook this down for about 5 minutes or so, and I'll be back. Okay, it's been 5 minutes, and you can see that the sauce has thickened up a bit. You don't want it to be really tight. You don't want it to be very firm. you want it to still be able to spread over rice or pasta or whatever you're using it with. But you'll know it's ready when you can drag your spatula through it, and it takes a while for it to come together and fill in the gap. So now what we're going to do is add in the chicken as well as any juices that may have accumulated on our plate. And we're going to toss that through, and then we're just going to let this heat through for about 2 minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, just to get that chicken hot again. But you can see that lovely thick sauce is coating our chicken, exactly what we're looking for. Okay, so it's been another minute or two. I'm just going to turn off the heat and we are done. But you can see you get plenty of sauce, enough to coat the chicken as well as whatever you are adding your chicken onto. Quick and easy, perfect for a weeknight, and so delicious. Much better for you than takeout. But how much better is the question. Now this is going to serve 4 people, and each of those servings is just going to be 2 Better Balance Bites or Old Blue Points. I'm on the Healthy Better Balance plan, which is equivalent to the old WW Blue plan, which is around where their current plan is. And if you are following calories, 1 serving would be 298 calories. And if you are following macros, the fat is 7.3 grams, saturated fat is 1.5 grams, protein is 19.2 grams, carbs are 49.8 grams, fiber is 1.6 grams, and sugars are 0.2 grams for 1/4 of this orange ginger chicken. Now, if you have any leftovers or you're doing this as meal prep, you want to let this cool completely before putting it into an airtight container. I usually put it in with the rice that I'm going to be serving it with, and you can have it in the refrigerator for 3-4 days. If you wanted to freeze it, you would do the same, let it cool, put it in an airtight container without the rice, and you could freeze it for 3 to 4 months. Now, I hope that you enjoyed this recipe in this video, and if you did, I would appreciate the usual like, subscribe, comment, share, and hit that notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. Such as there is a collab coming up on the 26th that I am hosting called Monster Bash, and it's going to be Halloween party foods. So hopefully you'll hit that notification bell and be notified when that one's ready to come out. And of course, if you want the recipe for this, it is going to be on my blog. I will link directly to the recipe down in the description box. And there's also a link to my blog itself, as well as other things, including my cookbook, my stores, my social media, what have you. So check out that description box for all sorts of information. So now I'm gonna let this cool down and store it so that whenever I'm in the mood for some orange chicken, I have it on hand. And I hope you'll be trying it yourself very soon. So until next time, bye.